The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Well, good evening. I'd like to welcome you to this week's episode of the Fireplace Show. And what's the Fireplace Show? This is our show sponsored by the CVC Success Group. And what's the goal? What's the mission? To assist consumers who have questions about their fireplaces, about their wood stoves, their chimneys, their gas logs, any other hearth appliances. All you need to do is send your questions in to the email address on your screen right now. And I'd love to give you a little background and answer your questions on an episode of the Fireplace Show. So we got several great questions that have come in since our last show. One is going to be about what is a masonry heater. I'm going to go into some details on what masonry heaters are tonight. We're going to also talk about something that was invented back in the 18th century by one of the fathers of our country, Benjamin Franklin, and that is the Franklin stove and the Franklin fireplace. Lastly, I've had a lot of people that have sent questions in about adding a heat exchanger called a magic heat into the stovepipe on their wood burning appliances and want to know if it was a good idea to do that. So stick around with me. We'll be right back and we'll get started on tonight's show. Appreciate you being here with me. And I appreciate you being here. Like I said, I brought a few photos up so I could help share with you the information I'm going to share with you tonight. And again, appreciate you being here. And this is the Fireplace Show. And again, it's a presentation by CVC Success Group. My name's Jerry Eisenhower. I've been in the fireplace chimney industry for around 40-some years now. Been around quite a while. So anyway, the whole purpose here again is to answer consumer questions. So one of them that came in since our last show was Jerry, what's a masonry heater? We'd really like to know about this. We're getting ready to thinking about putting one of those in our house. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? So first question we're going to deal with tonight is, what is a masonry heater? Well, quite simply, what a masonry heater is, it is a wood burning appliance that is built into someone's home. And the principle of the masonry heater is to absorb the heat from the fire and from the smoke and then radiate it into the room. These are often going to be site built, usually by someone experienced with the masonry heater system. I'm going to give you some drawings and some photos on this presentation tonight so you can kind of gain an understanding of them. The first thing is a masonry heater, believe it or not, it has a minimum weight rating. And the minimum weight rating on a masonry heater is it's got to weigh 1,760 pounds. Now, why does it need to weigh 1,760 pounds? Well, that's to give it enough masonry mass to actually soak up the heat and radiate it into the room. The neat thing about a masonry heater is we load it once or twice a day, and then we don't have to keep a fire going in it all the time. Now, the bad side of a masonry heater is we have to heat this masonry mass up, all this brickwork, this mortar, everything else. So to make a masonry heater start producing heat, that can take anywhere from 24 to 48 hours of heating it up before it actually becomes something very useful as a heat object. And what it does, it creates radiant heat that's projected into the room and from there. Now, like I said a while ago, masonry heaters often are built by a masonry heater builder, and the masonry heater builder will site build these on site for the consumer. They'll build them on site, but you can also get factory made masonry heaters, which is you're looking at now. These often are imported from Europe, and they're very popular in certain segments of the European continent, primarily up in the northern part of Europe, up in the Scandinavian countries. And like I said, we're going to give you some more background as we go. Again, these don't have a really hot surface except right around the loading door. You're going to have some heat there. So as you're looking at it, this is a freestanding type assembled from a kit that a builder would put into a consumer's house, and then from that point they would use it. Now, like I said, the thing is, you're not going to start a masonry heater up this afternoon and get heat in your home tonight. It's going to be something that you're going to have to preheat and get it hot. But this is what a masonry heater does, and that's showing you another example of them. There's a lot of these that you can find, different designs, different looks on the internet by doing some research. Okay, now this is a masonry heater that's commonly found in Scandinavian countries, up in Sweden and in Norway and Denmark. In those countries, you'll often find these, which are freestanding type masonry heaters, and they're very beautiful. They sit in the corner of the room or against the wall. They'll have some really nice tile work on them. But again, it's a masonry heater, and what it does is the masonry materials soak up the heat and then radiate the heat into the room. Now, when I talk about radiant heat, what this is doing, this heat is going right through the air. It doesn't heat air. Radiant heat heats objects, and then the objects that it heats then warm up, and they actually produce the radiant heat on into the room. As the objects are warmed up, they also produce what we call convective heat, which is air being heated. So a very good use. And what they're actually called in this type of design in the Sweden, whenever English speaking people such as ourselves say it, we call them kakalovens. And it may sound like it's spelled kind of different, but that's actually the spelling for this type of appliance whenever you find it in the northern European countries that we're talking about. Now, other things like this that are also masonry heaters, you see on the left what is called a Russian fireplace. And a Russian fireplace is also a masonry heater that we're heating up a mass. And the amazing thing about this is, in older times, people cooked on these. And another amazing history fact is people actually built beds on top of these and slept on these to stay warm in the wintertime because it's pretty cold in Northern Europe. Now, in America, what we also find is what's called the Pennsylvania fireplace. And the Pennsylvania fireplace, as you can see, you have the smoke flow coming out of the firebox where the fuel is burnt. It then goes downward, goes through channels, and then goes up. And what's happening is this smoke is flowing through these channels in the system. It's heating up the masonry again. And the principle is to radiate the heat into the room. So let's keep going on this and show you a couple more things. Now, you're looking at a couple designs. In the center, marked with the red arrow, is what is a conventional American fireplace that you're going to find built out of brick and mortar in the average home. Now, on the left and on the right, you're seeing what the interior of a masonry heater will look like. Again, it's up to the design and the builder how these flue channels will go. But as you can see, this causes the smoke to take all kinds of pass through the masonry materials. And what this is doing is, as the smoke is passing through, it's actually being sucked into the masonry materials. And again, the whole idea is to warm up the masonry materials. The masonry materials are a very good heat sink and hold this heat and then slowly radiates it into the room, making for a very comfortable living area for the consumer that is in their home. But you got to keep in mind, you've got to heat these up. Like I said, masonry heater builders will say that it takes 24 to 48 hours. Remember, you've got almost 2,000 pounds or more of masonry that's got to be heated up in order for this appliance to actually do its job properly. So, and we also call this a Contra flow design. A contraflow design. And what the contraflow design means is the smoke is being flown in different contrasting paths through the masonry materials. And this is all to create turbulence in there, because with the turbulence, this assists in that heat transfer going over. Think of it kind of like friction. If you rub your hands together, you're going to make heat. So what's happening is, as this smoke goes up, curls around, goes through these various channels going up and outward, what it's doing is it's heating up the masonry. So again, we commonly call this a masonry heater. We may call it a Pennsylvania fireplace. We may call it a Russian fireplace. But what it is a fireplace that is capable of storing heat in the system. And it's a very, very good system in colder climates. Now, right now, as I'm broadcasting, it's pretty cold here. We had a snowstorm today, but I'm in North Carolina. So using a masonry heater in the Piedmont section of North Carolina, it really doesn't get that cold here. So this is something that's primarily going to be used probably above what we would call the Mason-Dixon line, when we get up where it stays colder all winter. Now, you may be thinking, where can I get information on this? Where can I find someone qualified to build this? Well, I would research the Masonry Heater Association of America. The Masonry Heater Association, they have certification programs, and they teach people how to build these devices. They have a really nice meeting, usually every year in the mountains of North Carolina, and they all get together and they talk about masonry heater tidbits, how to do them, how to get the most out of them. There's a few well-renowned masonry heater builders in the United States, and it's not common that somebody could have to get someone from outside their market area to come to their home and build that masonry heater for them. So hopefully this has answered the question of what is a masonry heater, and it is a fireplace. It's going to be fired once or twice a day, depending on the design. We're going to heat the masonry up. Then the heat is going to be slowly radiated out throughout the 24-hour cycle in the day. Really neat process. So, hey, it's something. I hope this answers your questions for you. If you got any questions, put them into the chat bar. I'd be glad to try to answer them here. Now, let's go to our next subject for tonight, which is the Franklin stove. And what you're looking at on the left is a cast iron or steel freestanding stove that back in the 60s and 70s, a lot of companies started making these and called them Franklin stoves. And Benjamin Franklin, one of the fathers of our country, was actually known as inventing and designing the Franklin fireplace, which actually became the Pennsylvania fireplace also with his designs. So on the left, what you're looking at is what American ingenuity basically ruined Ben's concept. What you're looking at on the left is a Franklin stove that was sold by a lot of importers and hardware stores in the 70s and the 80s. It's not an airtight unit. It is basically a freestanding fireplace, and it doesn't give you heat on a measured around the clock basis like an airtight wood stove. On the right-hand side, you see the Franklin fireplace. And as you can see, it's open on the front as a fireplace. But I'm going to go to my next picture here. And what you're looking at now, pinpointed with the green arrow, is how the smoke travels out of the Franklin fireplace. You can see that the fire is burning, and it goes up one channel, makes a 180-degree turn, comes back down below the firebox in the rear, and then goes back up, goes into the chimney. And Ben invented this because at that time, it was very difficult to keep a fire going overnight and to have heat the next morning. So Ben invented the Franklin fireplace. And what you see as these cheap looking stoves that are out there, they're called Franklin stoves, those are not Ben's designs. Those are designs that people went and with an entrepreneurial spirit, what did they do? They wrecked the entire concept of what Ben invented in the 18th century. And Ben's probably turned over in his grave a few times if he known what people done to him. Kind of like the Colonel and his fried chicken. What they're doing with KFC today, it probably ain't what the Colonel envisioned when the Colonel rolled out his Kentucky Fried Chicken recipe many years ago. And then when he hit the roads and the highways of America and started selling his fried chicken formula to restaurants across America. So this is the Franklin stove that I was asked about. I hope you understand this. Now let's go to the next thing we're going to talk about tonight. And this is a blower that is called a Magic Heat. And these are commonly sold in hardware stores. You may find them on the internet. And what they are is a blower in a box that fits onto the stovepipe. And the concept here is that we blow air across the stovepipe and take the heat off of that stovepipe and put it into the room. Sounds like a great idea, right? No, it's not. It's really a bad idea, because what happens when you use a Magic heat exchanger like this, it's going to cool the smoke down, and we're going to have excessive creosote, and we're probably going to have smoking issues, and we're going to have to clean the chimney more often, and we've got the higher risk of having a chimney fire. So according to when we teach new sweeps, and we advise them when they see one of these in use in the field, they're supposed to recommend that it be removed and no longer utilized, because it can be a safety hazard. And as you can see in the photo to the right, what do you have in this? You have a fan, and the fan is blowing air through those pipes that you're looking at there and takes that heat off the pipe, puts it into the room. Again, probably sounds like a great idea when you listen to it, when you first hear it. But at the same point, there's a bad side, which is the dangerous side of doing this, okay? So Magic heat exchangers, we do not recommend them be used. Professional chimney sweeps, if they come to your house and they see this, they're probably going to be recommending that you no longer use this animal. And that's in your best interest. So anyway, this has been our weekly episode of the Fireplace Show. And again, this is brought to you by the CVC Success Group. My name is Jerry Eisenhower. And why do we have this show? We have this show in order to educate the consumers of America into proper operation, proper use of their chimneys, their fireplaces, and a few other things. So, hey, we've had a couple comments come in during the show, and Brandy Biswell commented, thanks for the information. Brandy, I appreciate that note there. Thank you a lot. And then Brandy made another one, says, I did not know about that weight. Masonry heaters are not very popular in Kansas City. And see, this is the whole thing. A lot of people don't understand about these, but it does take certain criteria for this unit to actually heat. And my friend Yvette up in Canada, she says it's not the greatest item in the world. Now, she posted that whenever I was talking about the Magic heats a while ago, was where she was talking about when it's not as good. Now, Yvette's got another comment. Worked okay on the old stoves with so much lost heat. Yeah, Yvette's brought up a great point. If you look at the wood stoves that were made back in the 70s and in the 80s, those exhausted a lot of heat up the stack, up the chimney, and those, it may work out okay on those because we're really putting so much heat up the chimney. But in a modern stove today, the temperatures that are going up the chimney are very, very low. And the reason for that is a wood stove that's manufactured to meet EPA standards in today's world, or Canadian standards for clean burning, they're not going to put a lot of heat up the chimney. And what can happen if we're using that Magic heat, it can cool the smoke, cool the gases. We have excessive creosote, and you might have a lot of stuff. Yvette, I appreciate your comments there. I appreciate you being on here, and I appreciate you, young lady. So anyway, we appreciate everybody being here tonight. So again, if you're a consumer, and you've got questions about your fireplace, about your wood stove, about your gas logs, about anything like that, then feel free to send them in to me at the email address on the screen, jerry@cvcsuccessgroup.com. So you're aware, I do not sell to consumers. I don't service consumers. I am a coach and consultant and trainer in the chimney, venting, and hearth industries. So the advice that I'm giving you is the same advice that we use when we're training new technicians into the industry. So send us your questions. If you want to know some of our past episodes, you can actually go onto our website, and we have a library of our past episodes on there. Our website is cvcsuccessgroup.com, and we have a whole pile of these in our video library. And with that, hey, I hope you have a great day. I appreciate you joining in. It's truly an honor, it's a privilege, and it's a pleasure whenever we can help people just like you get your answers and make your home safer, and where you get more out of your fireplace, your wood stoves, your gas logs, whatever it is you're using. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Fireplace Show.